The night sky boiled with smoke, thick enough to choke the moonlight, as ember haze stumbled through the pine-studded clearing, barefoot, coughing, her heart thundering, louder than the flames chewing through the wooden cabin she once called home. Tears streamed down her soot-painted cheeks as she ran, half-blinded, stumbling over rocks and roots, whispering prayers through trembling lips, begging the darkness to hide her from the men who had set the fire and the past she had been fleeing for years. And just when her legs almost collapsed beneath her, she heard hooves deep, powerful, deliberate, echoing through the burning silence like a promise from a world she thought had forgotten her. She turned, terrified. The arsonists had come back to finish what they started, but instead, through the smoke emerged a tall, broad-shouldered figure on a coal-black horse, silhouetted like some myth carved out of flame and shadow, his hat low, his jaw sharp, his eyes fierce and burning, like he had stared down hell more than once. Cole Maddox, the reclusive rancher people whispered about in town, the man who kept to himself and carried pain like a second skin. Ember collapsed to her knees as he dismounted in one swift, urgent motion, and before she could speak, before she could warn him, before she could even exhale, he grabbed her hand, warm, calloused, steady, and said in a voice that rumbled with certainty, "You're safe now. Not on my land. Not tonight. Not ever again." And those words, simple yet carved from iron, shattered the last pieces of fear clutching her heart. With her hand locked in his, he pulled her to her feet, guiding her toward his horse as the flame swallowed the cabin behind them. And she realized he wasn't just saving her from the fire, he was pulling her out of a life she had been trapped in for far too long. Yet she didn't know who he really was, didn't know the ghosts that haunted him, didn't know the vigilante creed he followed, didn't know the danger he'd just welcomed into his world. But as she pressed her cheek into the horse's mane and Cole lifted her behind him with a gentleness that contradicted his rugged edges, she felt for the first time in years like she wasn't running alone. As they galloped through the darkening forest toward Maddox Ranch, the wind shredding the smoke from her lungs, Ember hesitated before whispering the truth she'd buried for so long, that the men who set the fire were hunting her, that they wanted something she carried, something buried in her past. And the moment she said it, the rancher stiffened, the reins tightening in his hands as the moonlight cut across his steely features, revealing a man who had sworn never to risk anyone again. Yet here he was, risking everything for a stranger. She told him about the threats, the years of hiding, the bitter secret that had turned her life into a running storm. And when they finally reached his lonely ranch, vast, quiet, guarded by mountains and silence, Cole dismounted and helped her down like she was something fragile, something worth protecting. And as he led her inside his old cabin, lit by a single lantern and smelling of cedar and dust, he gave her a blanket, a glass of water, and that same grounding promise in his voice: whoever they are, whatever they want, you're not facing them alone. Not knowing that by sheltering her he was igniting a war he had long avoided, a war tied to his own buried past. And as Ember rested her head against the rough wooden wall, exhausted, but strangely safe, the night wrapped around the ranch like a warning. The fire was only the beginning, and neither of them knew how far fate planned to pull them together, or how deeply their lives were about to intertwine. But Cole kept watch, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes sharp, already making silent vows he couldn't explain, because saving her had awakened something he thought had died in him, a purpose, a fire of his own, one that whispered she had come into his life for a reason. And outside, far beyond the fence line, the shadows of the men hunting Ember crept closer, unaware that the lone rancher they were about to cross was the wrong man to provoke, the wrong man to threaten, and the only man willing to burn the world down to save the girl who had burst into his life through flames. And it's over for now, though she could see the bruise on his cheek and the fire in his eyes. That said, the true battle hadn't even begun. In the days that followed, they prepared Cole, teaching her how to defend herself, how to ride, how to trust the strength she didn't know she had. while Ember taught him to let someone into the quiet, guarded corners of his heart again until one evening, as the sun dipped low and the wind grew restless, Ember told him she no longer wanted to run. She wanted to fight beside him, not behind him, and the rancher, who had spent years alone in grief and grit, felt something soften deep inside him, a place he thought was forever broken. Together, they planned the final stand, gathering evidence, sending it to federal authorities, and setting a trap for the syndicate's leaders on the rugged ridge above Maddox Ranch, where Cole knew every stone, every slope, every shadow. When the men arrived angry, armed, desperate, the truth Ember had kept locked away finally exploded into the open. And with Cole beside her, guiding her, shielding her when needed, empowering her when fear threatened, they fought not with vengeance, but with righteousness, exposing the crimes to the world, forcing the syndicate into the hands of justice, ending the long nightmare that had chased her across states and seasons. And when the dust settled, when the threats died, and the mountains exhaled peace again, Ember stood beside Cole at the ranch fence line, the wind sweeping her hair back as he looked at her, not with pity, not with duty, but with something deeper, something earned through fire and survival, something fragile yet fierce. He took her hand the same way he had the night she ran from the burning cabin and said softly, "You don't have to run anymore, unless it's with me." And Ember, heart overflowing, whispered, "Then I'm staying if you want me to." And Cole Maddox, the lone rancher who had sworn to keep the world locked out, finally let someone in. And as the two walked back toward the warm glow of Maddox Ranch, their silhouettes merging with the soft gold of evening, Ember realized that sometimes the fire meant to destroy you leads you straight to the person meant to protect you, heal you, and walk beside you into every sunrise that follows. If you enjoyed this powerful story of courage, love, and survival, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss another emotional story. Your support helps the channel grow and inspires more amazing stories just like this. Subscribe now and be part of our storytelling family. Morning crept over Maddox Ranch slowly, painting gold across the open fields as Ember jolted awake on the old leather couch, her heart still beating to the rhythm of last night's terror, only to find Cole sitting at the table, half lost in the glow of the sunrise, studying her with quiet protectiveness that made her chest tighten with unfamiliar warmth. She tried to stand, but he motioned her to sit still, offering a plate of warm biscuits and a cup of strong black coffee. And though she could barely manage a small smile, he noticed just as he noticed every flicker of fear in her eyes as she explained the full truth. The men chasing her belonged to a ruthless land syndicate that had swallowed ranches, families, and entire towns. They wanted documents she carried, evidence of corruption, murders covered as accidents, land seizures disguised as legal deals, and the moment they learned she had escaped with it, they set her cabin ablaze to silence her forever. Cole listened silently, jaw clenching, the muscles in his forearms tightening as his past clawed at him, for he too had lost land, family, and peace to powerful men who thought money made them gods. And protecting Ember wasn't just an act of kindness anymore, it was justice he had been waiting years to serve. With each word she spoke, she felt lighter, the burden lifting from her shoulders for the first time since the nightmare began. And when she finally met his gaze, expecting pity or fear, she saw only determination, solid, unshakable, carved into him like the mountains that guarded his ranch. He stood abruptly and told her they would face the syndicate head-on, that he wasn't letting her run anymore, not while he was breathing, not while his land stood firm beneath his boots. And though Ember trembled at the thought, she nodded, drawn to his courage like a lifeline. But danger arrived faster than either expected. By noon, dust clouds swirled near the outer fence, and Cole, grabbing his rifle with instinctive precision, led Ember to the hidden cellar beneath the barn, instructing her to stay silent, stay low, trust him. And though she hated hiding, she obeyed, her heart pounding as she listened to the engines rumbling outside. Moments later, voices echoed, cold, mocking, confident men demanding Ember's surrender, threatening to burn Cole's ranch next. And Cole, unflinching, stepped out into the open, his shadow stretching across the dirt like a warning, his voice low and deadly as he told them this land wasn't theirs to threaten, and this woman wasn't theirs to claim. When they lunged for him, he moved with sharp, controlled precision, the kind born from years of survival, and though he was just one man against many, his stance, his fury, his promise to protect Ember, held the line like a fortress. Ember, trembling in the cellar below, heard the scuffle, the shouts, the thuds, until finally silence, broken only by Cole's heavy footsteps descending to her as he opened the hatch and whispered,